Hey, good morning, everyone. All right, so we started with this integration wherein we have created, go to developer console, we have created a class. So required to check it out. I have created. So this was the class which I have created. So, all right. So in the last session, we created a class to parse the JSON input, which we would be getting from Weather Map API. And I guess I also have that response with us. So yeah. So this was that complete response, after giving a request in the form of a city to the endpoint URL, this weather map API is generating a response like of this. Now, how much portion of this you wanted, display of how much portion of this response, this JSON response you wanted to use, uh, and how to ignore the rest other part that we have covered, right? Oh, that is yet to be covered, sorry. So I just have created with this, I just have created, the request, we send the request, and we have created one temporary variable wherein the response what we received the response and we collected that response inside in that variable, and thereby we have checked like whether or not we are getting this response properly, right? And this we have checked with system.debug again inside in our visual force page also. Inside in our visual force page also, we have seen that response, right? So if you would enter a city name over here, if you would enter a city name and you ask for show weather detail, so this would get connected with Weather Map API, which is an external standalone application, and it would fetch out the details, whatever, right? The current weather conditions, and it would, we are just displaying everything out of the response, like everything, whatever is getting, we just have stored that and we are displaying from a variable. So it presently, as you can see, it displaying everything. Now we would going to select how much information out of this is seems to be intelligent for us, and how much portion of this response we are going to ignore them. All right. So uh, I will I will extend this program, and till now what we have got, we fire the request, we get the response, and we confirm because we have seen that we are receiving the response. That means our API is getting, we are hitting that API properly, and it is giving us the response back. Now from this onward, this beyond, I'm going to write the code that would parse the JSON content, right? That would parse the JSON's response and represent it on the visual force page. Represent it on the visual force. So from this onward, I would be creating and parsing type of code, and we have already did that, right? So I'm going to use once again. I would be using the methods of JSON parser class for this. So I'm going to define object of JSON parser system.json parser, and I would be creating object called w parser, weather map w parser. You can give any name, system dot json dot create parser. And inside in that create parser, you have to supply that JSON string, which we get as a response. So because we have collected that inside a variable, we can give that name over here directly. Otherwise, if you haven't did that, if you, for example, you have not collected it, right? If you have not collected that, you can write down this statement. this HTTP response variable, wherein you send the request, you get the response. So you can use this statement over there, w response dot get body over here as well. But since we already did that and we have stored that response in the form of a text, we have stored that response inside in this variable. I would be giving the name of that variable over here. All right. Now let me iterate this. Let me iterate this from beginning to the end. So while that W parser, thought next token, if it is not equals to null. So till the time the value, while in iteration, till the time the value of a token is actually getting received, right? It would going to iterate it from the first to the last. Until that time, every time if there is a token, this would be inside in the loop. And it's obviously is going to outside a loop whenever the entire response has been passed. When the entire response has been scanned and there is no more token inside in the consideration. So that time, it will go outside the loop. Anyways, that we did this, right? This is, I guess, third or fourth or maybe fifth program wherein we are discussing the same logic. So it's not a new thing. Now, now I would be going to design the same thing which we have created, the same, I mean, that same parsing mechanism which we did this so many times, right? So p parser dot get the value of current token first of all, get the value of current token, and if that token, is JSON token dot JSON token dot, if it's a field name, right? If it's a field name, and if it's a field name, then get the value of get text, get text, and that should equals to, let's see what we have in the response. So I would have to work accordingly. Now see here, how would you are going to ignore? I mean, the response actually starts from here, right? What I'm saying is like, uh, out of this complete response, we can select how much portion we wanted. How to do that? How to do that? All right, that is what I'm explaining you right now. Sorry guys, I'm a little bit dull today. Yesterday night I slept somewhere around 2 or 3 p.m. So it's hardly like 3 or 4 hours I have been slept. So that is the reason. Anyways, so if you would see that we decided that we would be going to use only this much portion. And accordingly, inside in our program as well, the variables we have defined was like average temperature, feels like minimum, maximum pressure and humidity. That means out of this complete response, we decided that we would be going to use only this much portion and rest everything prior to this and beyond that, before and after, whatever has been there, whatever has been there before and after, we would we would be going to build up a logic in a way like we would going to ignore this. So how exactly we can do that is like, your response actually start from here. The first information is about the coordinates. The second is about the weather. The first is about base station. Then this whole complete information, if you would see this whole complete information, which we wanted to get display, we wanted to display this information. And by the way, that comes under this, right? That comes under this, and which has been inside a block called as main, which is there inside a block called as main. So what I'm going to do would be like, when I would be parsing, I would look for this one. See, inside in my code, doing, what I'm doing is like, so try to find out whether that JSON token is a field name. And by the way, if it's a field name, whether it is main. See, so what is going to be happen? Till the time this condition won't met, till the time this condition won't met, it would automatically go outside the loop, come for the next token. And this happens, it would continuously, it would continuously go further, right? It would continuously would go further till the time, because we have checked this out. When you are inside in an if statement, that time here probably you'll have to write down system that next token. But when you come outside of this, that next token automatically is executed, and we checked that. You remember, I was having certain program, I'm not sure which one, but with that program, I told you that when you go out of the scope, the next token is automatically is executed. Huh? Although inside in the if statement, inside in that block, you have to write it down. But as and when you go outside this, the next token is automatically executed. So what is going to be happen? Like if this condition wouldn't match, if this condition wouldn't match, it would go outside the loop and it would automatically go to the next token. So what is going to be happen would be like, it would first of all check for this one. It would first of all check for this one. Whether this is a field name, the answer would be yes. Well, yes, yes, this is a field name. It's a field name. The first condition, this portion would be true. Yes, it's a field name. Now, if it's a field name, get the text. And if that text equals to main, is this condition, because we have put up an and condition. What does it means? What does it means? If this is statement one and let's say this is statement two, if you have an and condition in between, that means both of them has to be true. It's not either of. And means statement along with statement two, both of them has to be true, and then only you would going to come inside in this loop. So although the first condition becomes true, yes, this first token is a field name, but then the second condition fails. When we get the text, we found that this is not equals to main. It's not equals to main. So it would going to ignore that. And then when it comes out of the loop, it would going to execute the next token. Next token, it would scan LON. Whether that LON is a field name, again the answer is true. Yes, LON is a field name. Okay. If it's a field name, is the value is main, answer false. Okay. Then it comes to the next token. Next token is LAT. Is the LAT is a field name? Answer is yes. Yes, it's a field name. Is the value is main? No. Condition fails. Then it comes to weather. And see, period, I mean, step by step, one by one, it would going to scan every one of them. It would going to scan every one of them. While it would come over here, let's say, I mean, after LON, it directly doesn't goes to LTT. I mean, it goes to this 79.1. If it's a field name, it immediately fails. No, it's not a field name. It's a field name. Yes, it's a field name. Is it is main? No. Then it comes to over here. Oh, it's a field name. No. It comes to over. Yes, a field name. Yes. Is it main? No. Then it comes over. It's a field name. Yes. Is it main? No. Then it scan over. Is a field name? No. So this way, this way, line by line, token by token, it would going to ignore all of them till the time it comes over here. All right. Is it a field name? Answer is yes. And if it's a field name, is it main? Again, answer is yes. Oh, now the condition, the condition becomes true. So when condition becomes true, immediately you enters inside in this, right? You enter inside in this. All right. Now what to do over here? Just give me 2 minutes. Just give me 2 minutes. I'm pausing the recording for 2 minutes.
Sir, you are not audible.
Oh, I'm extremely sorry. I was talking for the entire time I was talking on the mute. Let me revise this once again. So once this condition gets true, once this condition gets true, what we have to see for. So we have to come inside the block once this condition is true. That the value of current token is main. I mean, it's a field name and that to be it's a main. So what we have to do, there's nothing over here. You have to stand, like, and you have to immediately branch to the next token. So what I did in the program is like, if this condition gets true, I immediately come inside the block, and the very first thing which I have written is go to the next token, scan the value of next token. When I say that next token actually means this one. When I say next token, now from here you come over here. The control comes over here, right? The parser comes over here, and now the symbol which is it is looking is this one. All right. So what is this symbol? This is an start of object. So I'm going to write that if the p parser dot get current token, if that value, if that value is JSON token dot start of an object. If it's a start of object, I mean, this has to be start of object. See, this program which we are creating right now, from here onwards, that completely depends on what type of response, what type of JSON payload you are scanning, right? So without having this input, we simply cannot build up a program like this. Understand? That's why I always used to say that, see, the integration is just not just one man job. It's a kind of it's a zygosis between two persons. It's a collaborated work. It's a collaboration between two persons. If you are one of them, the other has to be the second one who would guide you, like, in what way the response is going to be get generated. Otherwise, we cannot perform the integration. We cannot write down the integration related codes. So whatever I am writing right now over here, that completely depends on this response. I was over here. I next is this symbol. What this symbol stands for? This symbol stands for start of object. So accordingly, I am designing everything. Okay. So if it's a start of object, what you have to do, when you have scanned this, you have to come to scan the next token, right? You were standing over here. Now you have to come at this point. You have to come to the next token. So how would you are going to come to next token? Simple. W parser dot next token. All right. W parser dot next token. And now what is that? Temp. Temp. I would be copying this. And moreover, there's one more thing. Yeah, I'll come to that point. So as soon as I say next token, as soon as I would say next token, now I am standing over here. Now I'll have to write down a statement to check out whether it's a field name, whether it is a field name. And that to be, if it's a field name, the value has to be temp, right? So I can make a use of this statement. I can simply copy and paste it out over here. If the W parser dot get current token, after getting next token, get the value of current token. And please see to that if that next token is a field name. And if it is a field name, it has to be temp. It has to be temp. If that is true, come to this block. If that is true, come to this block. And here, first of all, what you have to do now, once this portion is true, every time, see, if you wanted to shift yourself from this part to the next part, right? Every time when you wanted to shift yourself from this part to the next part, you actually, don't forget to write down this next token. How would you make that transition from current token to next token? Is you are going to make a use of this next token. All right. So immediately first thing was next token. Now this value of temperature is not in degrees Celsius. This value is not in degrees Celsius because 299 degrees Celsius is very hot. It's very hot. So I would require to convert, I guess that is in Kelvin. Let me see to the formula. Kelvin to Celsius, what is the formula? Minus 273. So what happens if I give the value? How much value we are getting? Let me try. Oh, yes, this is the corrected one. See, 299.16 is the value of temperature, but that is in degree Kelvin. It's not in the degree Celsius. It's not in degree Celsius. So in degree Celsius, you have to, it's actually 26 degree. It seems to be a room temperature. So 0 degree Kelvin is minus 270 degree. I'm not sure whether you know this or not. The Kelvin is used to describe an extremely cold temperature. Kelvin is used to describe extremely cold temperature. Like if you wanted to get the exact temperature, let's say, of liquid nitrogen, right? Just a small talk related to general knowledge. So if you wanted to get the temperature of substance like liquid nitrogen, you cannot express this inside in your inside in your degree Celsius, because that's an extremely temperature. So this type of extremely cold temperature, they are always expressed in degree Kelvin. And there is, I am not sure whether you heard this or not. That magnetic leviation. The Japanese, they are building up world's fastest train. The technology what they are using is something called as maglev. Maglev. That's a combination of magnet along with leviation. So how would they are doing that? Maglev. If you would Google that, you would going to know about a very interesting phenomenon, right? Is very interesting phenomenon that this magnetic leviation, entirely is built up on. There is something I just forgot that. Actually, what happened is like this the substances, the metals, they behave very strangely in an extremely cold atmosphere. So there was one experiment. I have seen that videos. If you, I'll just try to give you maybe this one. I'm not sure. I'll try to find out and give you. Oh, this one, this one, this one, this one. You can go with this. So what these guys would do, they have put up certain magnet and see, they are pouring that liquid nitrogen. I guess this is our right video. I will see to it and I'll just share you guys with the link of that. So the property of magnet, that entirely comes in a different form. When you make that magnet, you put that magnet in an extremely cold atmosphere, and that could be obtained with there are only very few substance, which could give you that much of the temperature. Liquid nitrogen is one of them. And this property, there was a proper name for it. I just forgot that name, that phenomenon. Kai or something. Cryogenic. Yes, of course. If you would search this word, cryogenic, so that cryogenic at temperature is extremely cold temperature. I'll just try to show you that. Cryogenic, this one. So cryogenic, it's an extremely cold temperature. And see, this is used in the rocket engines as well, because when that thrusters, this type of thrusters, when they boost up, it generates an extremely, there is a, what to say, extreme heat has been generated. So to cool down that heat, otherwise those metals is going to melt apart. That cryogenic engines have been used. So what is that? It's a very interesting topic. You can go and Google it out. That's a very interesting story. So this is how people are building a very strong phenomenon. Physics everywhere. Physics is everywhere. Anyways, so this response, what we see was in the form of Kelvin. When I converted this, and how to convert this, we have a formula. I just have closed that even without writing. So that's Kelvin, 0 degrees Celsius is -2. You can simply assume like even 1 degree Kelvin is minus 272 degrees Celsius. So the coolest point in the world is somewhere around in Russia. there's a village which is marked as the coldest point, as the coldest city. Its name is very difficult. It's very difficult. I mean, even the Russian names, they are very hard to pronounce. So that pronunciation is very tough. You go, and even that was somewhere around minus, I guess, 150 degrees Celsius. So, and this is minus 272. So you can think how cold is this, right? So we would go with 0 degree, and so I'll have to minus 273 degree with this one. So what I'm going to do is, like, inside in my program, the first thing is to get that, right? You have to get it. You have to get it. So after that next token, you were standing on the temp, you go to the next token. When you are on the next token, that means you are there. So we have defined a variable for that, average temperature, right? We have defined a variable called average temperature. So I would first of all would store that. I will store that inside this. So because that's a decimal value, it's a decimal value, as you can see, 299.16. So to get that decimal value, I'll have to accordingly use that function. So I would going to write down like I would going to write down like this average temperature. First of all, I'll have to store the value inside in this variable. Average temperature value equals to get the value of, so now w parser dot w parser dot w parser dot, so get decimal value, right? Get decimal value. And because this value is in the form of Kelvin, so I would minus how much? 273. Can I paste it out? Yes, I can do that. I would minus with this value, I would going to minus 273 degree. Now, one more thing what you can do over here is, like, you can keep it this inside in bracket, and you can append degrees Celsius, C, so that it would indicate now this temperature is in the form of what? C. C stands for Celsius, isn't it? Right. Now, after doing this, uh, we have to go to this one. We have to go to the next one, next parameter, which is feels like. But see, understand one thing: you are inside in this. What to say? This start and end of object. When you move from here to here, that time it would automatically come to the next token. But because from here you are standing over here, you wanted to go this value. On this value, you want, after this value you wanted to scan like this, and from here you want to, every time you have to make a use of next token, right? Every time internally, after this you have to write down next token. This is very essential. All right, other you feel, I mean, if you would miss up your token, your parcel would stand over here, it would not come to the next token, right? It would stand over here, it does not go to the next value. So this is, every time you have to write it down. And now, after coming to the next token, after coming to the next token, I would have to scan for the next value. What is that? Feels like. Now this is a field name. So I would take this entire thing, copy this entire thing. I'll just paste it out here. And I put up a gap so that you would understand. Over here as well. Over here as well. Right. Once you have completed with this, let's go to the next token. And after coming to the next token, see for that token is a field name. And by the way, if it's a field name, अच्छा, this has to be very same. See, आप नो इसको हमेशा copy and paste ही करेंगे. Never type it. If you would even make a small difference, that this is not going to be scanned, that portion would be skipped. Remember. So this has to be always exactly same as it comes inside in your JSON payload, right? So every time copy this. Okay. So this has to be feels like. अगर ऐसा है तो feels like है तो then you'll come to the next token. Next token के मतलब होता है कि you come into this value. All right. This is again a temperature value, but in the Kelvin. And for this feels like we have a variable. We already have defined. So I would going to copy this, the name, and then over here, I'm going to replace that. Feels like equals to W parcel. First of all, go to the next token. Then get the value, because that's a point, and it's a floating point number. So you'll have to use this get decimal. Then minus 273.15 so that it would be converted from the Kelvin, degree Kelvin to the degree Celsius. After that, what is next? Next is again a temperature, right? So I would once again copy this, rather from this, I would copy, and I'll just paste it out over here. I'll just paste it out over here, give one gap. Uh, Semicolon I missed over here, I guess. Yes, here also semicolon. Now let me try to save up to this first of all. What is the error? Let's see. Get current name. This is what is happening. Get current token होना चाहिए. ये पता नहीं हर बार ऐसा क्यों हो जाता है. Again, mistake. ठीक है. All right. So once that field like portion has been completed, we go to the next token. Now after next token, we are actually over here. I'll just copy this portion. So is it a field name? Is it a field name? Yes. And if it's a field name, get the text that has to be exactly like this, temp underscore min. If this would match, go to the next token, get the value of that next token, and we have defined a variable for that where we have defined a variable called min temperature. So inside in this min temperature, I would be storing that value. We would get that decimal value will perform a subtraction. And this is like, it would be going to be get stored. Again, I would be copying this because there's one more temperature, max temperature. I'll go to the next token after this, get the value of current token. And if that current token value, if it is this one, if it is in this one, temperature max, then I'll go to the next token once again, get that value. We have one variable for that. We already have created that variable in the beginning of the program. So I'll just store that value inside in this and the same logic every time, right? I'll just save it out. Now, up to this, it was like something, it was related to this Kelvin temperatures. Beyond that is pressure. I'm not sure what is the unit of pressure. Unit of pressure. Let's see what is the unit of pressure. It is being expressed in so many different forms. Newton per meter square or kg per meter. Oh, there are so many different forms of this. Anyways, standard is Pascal, which is equals to 1 Newton per square meter. All right. Anyways, so beyond this, beyond this, first of all, what I'll going to do would be like, I'll just copy this whole thing once again. Let me copy and paste it out. So after getting that temperature max, we go to the next token. We go to the next token, and if that next token is pressure, if that next token value is pressure, so if that get the value of current token, and if that is pressure. So if it is pressure, uh, go to the next token, and here you just would require to store that. You don't have to perform any conversion. You would rather, you would rather to say, you would just use that for the pressure, you can directly take it like that text or something. So I would going to write down like pressure, this pressure, and equals to, so W parser dot get text, because that is a plain value. That is plain value. Let me try to save this. All right. Now, after this, there's again humidity, which is, we can consider this as well as a text. So I would be going to repeat this code, this much portion I'm copying. Next, again, we will go to the next token. Okay, we going to the next token. Next token, we would scan and we would check whether this is a field name. And if it's a field name, the text has to be humidity. If that again matches, you go to the next token, you take that value, and because you already defined a variable called humidity for this, you would be taking, you would be converting that into text, and then you would be going to store it inside in this variable. Now this everything has been done. This everything has been done. Now, so because we have stored every value inside a variable, these variables have been defined with getters and setters. We can easily now use them inside our Visual Force page. All right. So we can simply use them inside your Visual Force page. So I'll go to Visual Force page that we have created. I have removed a certain portion of code from here, which was this, So I would again copy and I would paste it out over here. We will not require this, right? We won't require this. So, or I can do one more thing. I can paste it below this, and let's have this. Let's have this for a time. Let's have this pressure value. So it was like the variable names have been changed. So there it's pressure. Here it has been pressure value. Let me try with shape to this. What is the next average temperature? I can do one thing. No. Let me do one thing. So I'll just go to the program. Whatever the variable name I have defined over here has to be the same. So the first is pressure. The first value which I'm displaying is pressure. So I would be copying this, and I'll just paste it out over here. Pressure. Here I'm displaying average temperature inside in my program. The variable which I have defined for this is this one. I would just paste it out over here. Average temp. So this has to be same. All right. Then the second is humidity value. Humidity value is, I define this with a variable called humidity. Here, humidity value. So this has to be same every time, otherwise it would automatically generates an error. The next is minimum temperature. For minimum temperature, I defined a variable called min temperature. So I guess that is same, min temperature. I will still copy and paste it. Feels like I have this variable feels like again, that is feels like temp here I have used, but it has to be same. And max temperature, I guess it's same. So let me now try to save it once again. There's no error, there's no error. And now if you would enter a city like Nagpur, right? Let's see. So it's, see, this is coming up like this. When you show, when you hit this button, so this is that response which we are getting in the form of JSON payload, and here we have just bifurcated. Out of this complete response, what have to display, we have just sorted out. Now, if you don't want it, if you don't want it, you can comment out that inside in your code. Let me show you how we can comment a statement. So it is something like this. You can comment it out. You can comment. This is the way like how you can insert the single line comment. I'm not sure how to introduce that. How to introduce that multiple lines comment. I just have forgotten that. Anyways, so let me now enter maybe a city like Mumbai. So show weather details. It would just hit that API, take the response from here. It would parse it, and accordingly, it would going to display that humidity 89%. Oh my God, Mumbai is very humid these days. 89%. How much? Feels like 33 degree. Average is 27, minimum is 27, maximum is 27.94. It's almost same the value. What about Pune? How's Pune is going on? Pune is all right. That's good. 26. Nagpur में क्या हाल था यार? Nagpur is again very humid these days. 29, 27, 30. ये तो ठीक है. All right, guys. So that's how you would interface. You would perform that integrations with the external standalone applications. There's one more example which I wanted you to try. There's one more example. I would explain you that, and I wanted you to try for this one, right? So see, let me first of all show you. Let me try to show you is endpoint URL. So this is basically there's one more standalone application which I just find out this one. So let's see. First of all, let me show you, and then we'll come over here. So if you would give like country India, you have to give that country name as India. Let me see whether this is working or what. Yes, it's working. So what it would return in a response, it would return all of the universities into that particular country, right? Into that particular country. In India, there's a lot of them, right? So it becomes a little difficult. If you would, if you wanted to see a simple response, maybe Nepal would work. Nepal itself have not many countries. Bhutan, let's see. Yes. So this is a small response you can now see. So this is again an open source application, universities dot hippo labs, whatever it is. And see, this is that URL. What you have to do is like, you have to create a program in a way that, it would get this response and how much portion of this we have to use. Let's decide that as well. So response starts from here. It starts from here, and the first thing is web pages. If you want, if you wanted to display that, you can keep it. Otherwise, if you want, you can even ignore that. But I guess we can display that, no problem. These all are the informations. These all are the informations that come up inside in that JSON payload. I just bifurcate this. Null, the name of university, domains, and town over here. There's something which is missing around. Mhm. That's yes. See, this response looks like to put this. What we can do is, these are same, these are same. There's no, I mean, you don't have to worry about this. These are two different records, right? And so what we can say is like in Bhutan, there are actually two universities. Both values are same, although both values are same, although I'm not sure why it has fetched two of them. But see, for just for the understanding, say that there are two universities. One of them is Royal University of Bhutan number one and Royal University of Bhutan number two. So there are two records. Now, important is what is what are the forms of entities over here. So these are the entities, web pages, alpha 2 codes, and so what you can do is like you can is just like this program, just like this one, you can create variables, right? You can create the variables of them, and you can of course have you can create instead of city name, that variable ideally should be country name. So from your front end, you can build up the same front end, and you can ask the user to enter the name of country that you can probably collect inside a variable with the name country name. All right, define some temporary variable just to see whether we are hitting the API properly or not. Just define a variable over there, and after that, whatever the parameters what you see, accordingly define certain variables. Then create your HTTP request in the same pattern every time. This has to be same. There's no differences, right? For every program, this is going to be absolutely same. How would you are going to do that? You first of all would create an HTTP class object. Then you would create a request with HTTP request. So usually the request have two things, which is very much mandatory: the endpoint and method name, and then this timeout and everything. If there's an optional thing you wanted to include that in the request, then send that request with HTTP and collect the response inside this variable. Get the body of the response, store it inside the variable, and then with the system.debug, just check it out whether it's hitting properly or not. So once up to this portion has been completed, you can build up the parsing algorithms that completely is based on what type of response you are getting. You have the code. I'm sure you have a code for this, yes. But please try to do this by your own, right? There is no meaning if you would just copy and paste it out. Tell me what you get out of this. If you would do that, what is that you get? मजा तो इस बात में है ना कि आप you would try, you get the error and you rectify yours. Whatever your work you did, you would rectify that. There would obviously be one more thing. If you wanted this website, if you wanted this application to be interacted with Salesforce, you obviously would require to add it into remote site setting. So your first step is always going to be add this into remote site setting. Yeah. Then in the second step, what you can do is like if you wanted, if you feel, you can create custom labels. Otherwise, you can directly build up, you can directly write down the endpoints like this as well. Otherwise, for this, if you want, you know, you can you can create a custom label as well. I have shown you that with this program itself. I have shown you maybe, right? So that could also be done. That could also be done like in this program itself. I guess we followed the same pattern, if I'm not wrong. Yes, system.label. See, the endpoint URL which I have created, I have used system.label. That means system.label means your custom labels I have used. So this is a good thing, this is a good programming. If you wanted, you can even do that. The endpoint URL, you would not require any API key in this case, although what you can do is like, you can you can store that endpoint URL inside a custom label and then give the name of that label with system.label and then the name of whatever the custom label name you have created. Just write down the API name. This is a good way to do the programming, right? It's highly recommended. Now follow the same pattern. So try to build up this. This is again a running program. I mean, I was not sure because these are everything over there is an open source. So whether it works for a previous batch, it works. It was in a working state. For this one, is it going to be work or not? So I always go and check it out. So it's a standalone application which gives you the details of universities. All right. So once you enter the name of that particular country, so it would going to give that. I know it's going to give the details of the universities over there probably. So go and pass this. This is by this one we have completed the inbound integrations. All right. So far, what we were doing, let me just take a quick recap of that. This is your Salesforce. There were certain standalone applications out there, right, which can be accessed by www.world wide web, where they were present. Now, if you wanted to access them, right, if you wanted to, let me take a quick revision once. So if you are getting certain parameters by them, of course, for them, for getting that, you obviously sending a request. You're sending a request to them. This is actually a two-way, this is actually a two-way kind of thing. You are sending a request to them and they are sending a response back to you. So they are sending a response back to you, right? So when you are receiving a response, actually, in this case, Salesforce is receiver, isn't it? When you are receiving a response, so Salesforce actually is a receiver. So that type of integration is called as an inbound integration. That type of integration is called as an inbound integration. Now let's quickly revise this. Let's quickly revise how to perform an inbound integration. Let's quickly revise this without seeing to any code or whatever. ठीक है, इसको आप और मैं हम ऐसा करते हैं, इसको हम कहते हैं ना कि ओरली जब हम याद करते हैं किसी चीज को, वैसा करते हैं. ऑल राइट. So this is an interview question. How would you perform an inbound integration? First of all, what is an integration? What are the types of integration? So there are on a broad level, on a broad level, there are two types of integrations, inbound and outbound. And next, we are going to start with the outbound integration. What we have completed just now is an inbound integration. So what happens in inbound integration is like, we from the Salesforce, we pass on certain parameters to an external standalone application. And based on that request, what we have sent, that system, that external application would send us a certain responses. Now, after collecting that response, we parse them, and based on what we have parsed, we can either display them on a front end part, on a user interface. Maybe that user interface is built up using your using your Visual Force page, or maybe or a Lightning, right? Whatever it is. Or else what we can do is like, we can even store them inside the objects. We can store it. If you, for example, if you have any object and there you have these fields instead of, instead of this, instead of these variables, you have certain fields. So that could also be done. And if you wanted to see that we have completed that program, we have parsed certain data for account object, and then after that parsing, we just have stored it inside account. That time, if you are doing it for an object of Salesforce, you can simply take the advantage of JSON.deserialize method, right? You don't have to go for the parsing, entire step-by-step parsing. You can simply use the method. There's a method, single line code. It was system.json.deserialize method, right? And that deserialize method would require the name of the first. It would require what is the JSON string, and there were only two parameters. First parameter is the JSON string. Second parameter is the sObject.class. So if it's a single record, it has to be name of the object.class, like account.class. If it's a multiple object, it would be going to be list of account.class, and you also would have to perform the typecasting accordingly, right? चलो वापस आते हैं, हम डिस्कस कर रहे हैं कि व्हाट आर द स्टेप्स ऑफ इनबाउंड इंटीग्रेशन. ठीक है, व्हाट आर द स्टेप्स ऑफ इनबाउंड इंटीग्रेशन? द फर्स्ट स्टेप, डोंट लुक इनटू द कोड, कोई जरूरत नहीं है कोड देखने की. फर्स्ट स्टेप, the first step, anyone wanted to participate? Yes, any one of you wanted to participate? The first step, what is the first step? I know you don't have a glass of lightning. I just have seen that message of Ram. What is the first step? The first step. Come on. Any one of you? If not, I'll give the answer. The first step. First step. All right. The first step, add endpoint URL into remote site setting of Salesforce. Because without doing this, you cannot interact with the external application. You wanted to make an interaction between an external, between the Salesforce and that external application, you would have to add that endpoint URL into remote site setting of Salesforce. That's step number one. Step number one. Step number two, if you wanted to hide the endpoint URL, if we don't wanted to expose the endpoint URL, or maybe the request which we are going to create, if it is required by the business that this should be hidden, step number two, which is an optional step, that depends on the kind of requirement. If we wanted to hide the request usually have endpoint URL. And if there is any access keys or what, if certain parameters are required, let's say a password is required or something else is required, if we wanted to hide them, then we can use custom labels. That could be step number two. Then step number three, create a program. Inside in your program, form the request. What? HTTP request. How you are going to form it? Again, there are three steps. First of all, create HTTP class object. Second, create HTTP response class object. With that response, with that response object, form a request. How would you going to form? Name of that response object dot. The first is set method, set endpoint URL. These are the method. Set timeout or few other, that is optional. So once that request has been sent, use that HTTP variable class, HTTP object that you have created to send this. How? There's a method called as send method. Once you send it, it would going to generate the response, collect that response inside HTTP response variable. After collecting that, apply one more method called as get body. And if you want, it's a good thing that you can store it inside a temporary variable. You can store it inside a temporary variable. Whatever the response that you get, right? Get body and store it. Then we can have a system.debug just to verify whether we are hitting that API properly or not. If the response is getting generated for the request, we send it out. Have that cross verification. After that, perform the parsing, right? Perform the parsing. So that parsing completely depends what type of response we are getting, what are the parameters, field names, and everything. So this is the step. These are the steps of performing an inbound integration. I hope this makes sense to every one of you, and this is very much clear. Now, by tomorrow, I would be going to start with there's one more example over here, but I'm not sure how to solve this. Whether this is working or not, I'm not sure. You can check it out. Tomorrow, from tomorrow onward, I would be starting the second, which is going to be the last part of integration and last part of my training, which is web services. I know I have promised to complete this in this month, but it's taking some more time because integration is that thing, it requires time. So yeah, it has been extended, maybe 15 more days, I guess. 15 more days I'll have to teach it, or 2 weeks at least, web services. Because in this, I'm going to convert, I would going to cover every method: get, post, put, patch, and delete. So there are a lot of them which requires a time to get explained and examples, of course. So next 15 days, probably 2 more weeks. Yes, that's all. Thank you so much for joining. You have any questions? Anyone wanted to ask anything? Yes, anyone wanted to ask anything? All right. Thank you so much for joining. Have a nice day.